You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 40 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me, as always, is Matt Lowe.
What's up?
My adopted daughter, 11 years my junior, Jessica Salaji.
Hey, and also, Matt, aren't you 40?
I am.
So we've done enough episodes as you are old.
That's right.
Yeah, yes. That's a long way to go.
It's 40 weeks. So it's like the gestation period of a human. Like there is somebody that listened to the first episode that could be giving birth right now.
Gross.
Not if they listen to you for an hour.
Please. I got 7 kids, man. They listen to me, they could end up pregnant.
Hashtag her too.
Right.
It is now officially Christmas season. I refuse to acknowledge any Christmas decorations before Thanksgiving, and this episode will drop on Cyber Monday. So did you guys have... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, man, my wife, if it was like left to her own thing, November 1st, she would throw the tree up. Like, get done, toss out the Halloween candy, and throw up the tree.
Let me guess, you're the wet blanket on that.
I am. Mostly because, like, I don't like Christmas. I've gotten better about it as I've gotten older, and I see, I don't know, like the magic of it with my kids. That makes it much more tolerable. But like if I was a single dude, man, come Christmas time, I'd be off hunting somewhere.
Well, it's a day off.
Oh, I'd take the whole 3 weeks around Christmas.
Well, the problem is they start playing Christmas music in November, and by December 25th, I'm just ready to, dig Bing Crosby up and just mutilate his body. I'm tired of hearing it.
You know what irritates me about Christmas music? There is one Christmas song that, like, I truly like, right? And I don't think I've heard it in the last 4 years.
Well, the one I like is by Weird Al. It's called "The Night Santa Went Crazy."
I like it's a Travis Tritt Christmas song. I don't even know the name of it. It just talks about I think it's called the loving time of year or giving time of year, something like that. I don't know. I like the message of it is good about taking the like the spirit of giving that people get into around Christmas. Just take that feeling and bottle it up and use some all year long. I don't know. I like it.
So, let me get this straight. You like a song that has, like, legitimate meaning behind it, but you hate the season and would rather be hunting?
No. I don't necessarily hate the season. I hate what it has become. Like, it's a tremendous pain in the ass. Like, everything about it.
You come off of a holiday that we give thanks for what we have, and then go, if these folks go into debt trying to buy stuff they don't need.
Right. Or, you gotta be here, then you gotta go there. And if you don't make it to this person's house, they get all irritated and mad at you. I don't know, just...
This is the 15-pound season between Thanksgiving and the week I was on vacation in Panama, and then all the way to New Year. It's just screw it. Bring me cookies. Fat boy wants to eat.
Right. Of course, like middle of January, we're gonna get done with Christmas and New Year's. Then we've got I guess kind of an update on my week. My kid made Eagle Scout, and so we're doing a reception for him. the first weekend in January, and then like 5 days after that, I'm leaving for
Well, congratulations, Little Low.
for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, whatever it is.
Man, that's a hell of an accomplishment that will serve him well throughout his life.
Right, 7 years. That's what it took.
Well, getting into our program, Florida is suing pharmacy chains Walgreens and CVS, and this is a quote, over their role in what the state calls efforts to increase the demand and supply of opiates into Florida. I'm sorry. I know it's, I've read the story through a couple times, and just find it hard to talk about. Jessica, as our expert on abusing opioids.
Yeah, with my frequent kidney stones, I mean, I'm well versed in the roles of the pharmacies, I guess, of mega chains. I struggle with this immensely because, first of all, like the state and at the federal level, they have cracked down on how this all works. Counties are suing the producers. People are suing the manufacturers. No one's suing the doctors, though, by the way, who are the ones that actually got the kickbacks. So now we're going to sue Walgreens and CVS. It says that they failed in their duties under Florida law to stop suspicious orders of opioids they received. Good luck proving suspicious in court, because that's a quote.
Man. All right, so there's few things about this, like just kind of on the surface, that I find interesting. One, that this particular attorney general is a Republican.
Why do you find that interesting?
Why do I find that interesting? Because the Republican Party in general typically scoffs and is very resistant towards like the idea of suing a gun manufacturer over gun violence stuff. So I think it's interesting that a Republican AG would get away with that in a fairly Republican-leaning state. The other thing is she looks like she's about 5 days out of law school, and I'm curious if like this was her first job as an attorney. Is she just passed the bar and ran for office?
What do you think about the fact that this was announced like just a few days after the election? Do you think it would have had an effect?
I don't know. I mean, probably, because I think people instinctively are like, well, it's clearly not their fault. They're the freaking drugstore, right?
Do you think people see it that way?
Man, I think so. I don't think a reasonable person looks at that and says, oh, well, it's clearly Walgreens' fault for filling the legal prescriptions of a doctor. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong and I give some people far too much credit, but...
Well, look, the government created this crisis. When they cracked down on pill heads, addicts are addicts. They created the damn crisis.
Oh, no, I agree. When they went after coke as hard as they did,
yeah, we got methamphetamine.
Right.
When they go after pills, what do we get? I was talking to a captain with one of the fire departments around here, and he's talking about going to the same bar 6 and 7 times in a night, giving Narcan, and because these pills, like an addict knows how much to use. Like if you're a heroin addict, you know how much heroin gets you high. You have no idea how much fentanyl gets you high.
Right.
So when you make that stuff harder to get, what you get is you get people who have my level of education in chemistry mixing drugs.
Right.
and you get people dying. And I'm not advocating for anybody being an addict, but it's not the role of government to legislate morality. If you want to die in a trailer in a holler in Kentucky with a handful of pills, that's on you. That's not on the taxpayers. And it just seems like government loves to fix problems they create. As Homer Simpson once said about beer, the cause of and solution to all life's problems. And that just seems to be what government is doing here. And it is to sue these two private companies. And to say, Matt, it's because she has an R after her name. The R and the D are both for big government. They just are on different subjects.
Well, I have 2 points to make. One, I would love to know how much money, not just Florida, but Georgia and all of our states and the local counties are spending on lawsuits trying to place blame for opioid abuse. I would love to know how much lawyers have benefited from this. Second, the thing about opioid overdose and opioid related deaths are that the numbers are delayed. The most recent numbers, I think, are from 2016. So we're working on old information. But they said that 2,798 people died of opioid-related overdoses in Florida in 2016. Now, I'm not trying to be rude, but that's not really that many.
How many did it say?
Almost 2,800.
So this thing here says that according to the CDC, 115 people a day die. And I assume that that's nationwide, right? So, frankly, that's 41,975. That many people die in car accidents.
Well, look, if we were only separated by 2,800 votes, we'd still be recounting. That's how small of a percentage it is. I'd love to know what we're spending on Narcan.
It's free.
Exactly. It's free.
Free.
Look, we've got officers who are responding to the same homes 4 times in a weekend, 5 times in a weekend. And these are already stretched thin resources that we've got in Paulding County, where Matt and I live. We've got deputies going to the same places over and over and over, giving Narcan, and the addict wakes up pissed because you just wasted my high. You wasted my dope. And one of my less classy moments, I guess, I was in a meeting, and we had which I didn't know this is where the talk was going. We had an addict talking to us about Narcan and how it saves, and how many times or how many times people get it and all that stuff. I'm like, let them go,
right?
and then she gets into the part of the talk where she was the addict before she got to recover. I'm like, once again, Dave's the a-hole. That's a true story, man. And you've known me long enough to know that is something stupid that I would say. Like,
I'm still tore up about these numbers, man. 41,000? That's not a crisis. It's just...
What was the 41,000 again?
That's according to the CDC, that's the number of people that die from opioid overdoses in a year. It's 115 a day. 115 times 365 was 41 something. 975 or something like that. Like, that's just, we really do. That's about 40,000 is the number of folks that die in a car wreck. I don't.
So I guess my question is, like, why is an epidemic a problem? Like, why is it the government's responsibility to make sure people don't die?
Man, I don't even think this is an epidemic.
Well, epidemic is relative because you're saying 115 people a day, but if you look at this article on Florida and you do the math, it's 7.8 people a day. So obviously some places are a lot worse than others. So I will give them that. But
well, I'm sure it's a population density thing. I mean, there's, I don't know, whatever, there are 20 million people in the state of Florida.
It's, and I know this is how, liberty-minded people get painted with the uncaring brush, but there's a long sequence of poor decisions that are made. Now, look, yes, you can get addicted, you can get too many opioids, and what I've been told from, especially from orthopedic doctors, because I've had multiple joints rebuilt, is the grading system that has come out for doctors, because they're worried about reviews, just like I am for my business and everybody else. If they tell somebody that you're going to be okay, just take some Tylenol, people go out and write bad reviews. So if someone says they're in pain, they write them scripts. But that doesn't take away the individual responsibility. I've had multiple surgeries. Folks in my family have had multiple surgeries. And there is a potential to get hooked. There really is. And Jessica, as you know, there's potential to get hooked. Right after surgery, I got advice from my father, which is good advice, which is never get behind the pain. If it says take it every 4 hours, take it every 4 hours. Don't wait till you're in excruciating pain and you never catch up. And post-surgery, that's absolutely good advice. Just some folks don't stick with that. And addicts, and I've known addicts, and I've had good friends and stuff who were, especially when I was younger, who if you had a bunch of pills in your hand, they would snatch it out, pop them in their mouth, and go, "Okay, what was that?" And you'd get two reactions. One is, "Man, you just took my Midol," or "Ooh, you took all that." So you're not going to change the fact that addicts are addicts. They're going to change the method of killing the pain in their life, whether it's moving to heroin or moving to something else. And just like Matt mentioned about Coke, well, when you make Coke really expensive, what do you get? You get meth. Every time you make pot hard to find, what do we get? Bath salts. Every time we clamp down on something way, way worse comes out.
Well, I was reading an article the other day talking about this, and it was saying that the opioid crisis is caused by the drug war because it's now easier to get prescription pills than it is to get illicit drugs.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, it's easier to get synthetic fentanyl than it is to get true opiates.
But
for whatever reason.
Again, though, easier to get is not because of the pharmacy, it's because of the doctor. So why are we suing the pharmacy?
How dare you bring it back to the original story?
Right.
Well, I mean, I was just checked the clock and we're at 19 minutes and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to land this plane.
Matt and I are just doing loops in the air, and Jessica is running air traffic control.
Slam this thing on the runway. Just screeching home at the gate. I was on a flight out of Kansas City like that once. Dude was two-wheeling it right up to the gate at Hartsfield. Well, let's sum this story up. People suck, and so does government. Right. Government created the problem. Now they're going to, I don't know, try to fix it, which I'm sure will create another problem.
It always does. Right. The Army
Speaking of the government.
Speaking of the government and spending money, the Army is reintroducing the pinks and greens uniform. The pinks and greens are similar to what you saw from World War II. The reason it's called pinks is the khaki has a pink hue to it. if you hold it just right in the sun. But on the color wheel to get khaki, you get a little pink, and the dark, not even OD green, but the really dark brown tops and jackets and ties, brown patent leather shoes, brown gloves, which is a change from the pickle suits that Matt and I were issued, and the formal dress blues.
I'm just most disappointed that they're not actually pink. Like, it's false advertising. When I first saw the link and you mentioned you want to discuss it, I was like, ooh, blue for boys, green for boys, pink for girls. You can laugh, it's okay.
No. I was just trying to figure out what color we use for the gender fluid.
Pinky green.
Stripes.
Stripes. Another good movie I'm sure Matt never saw.
Nope.
Oh, God. No, and Matt, was it the uniform that got you to sign up?
No. In fact, actually, they changed uniform while I was in. That's when they went from, like I was issued the standard green pickle uniform. And they hadn't made the transition to ACUs yet. And then as far as...
Hold on. Oh, most people don't know what that is.
That was the first digital camo uniform that you saw.
Gotcha.
And they've since changed to another, like a multicam type thing, which is... it's moved away from the digital, but still the lighter shades of green and brown and sand tones, as opposed to the black and dark brown and green. But then the dress blues, which I like I think the dress blues are sharp, but I didn't I think those should have been reserved for formal events.
Well, that's what's happening is the greens will take the place of the dress A's and the B's and the super B's. Okay. Class A is your suit. You've got jacket, tie, and you're wearing your ribbons on your jacket. The B's are lose the jacket. Sometimes you wear a tie, or if you're wearing the short sleeve, you don't wear the tie and your collar's open. And super B's are you're wearing your green button down undershirt, and you've got your ribbons and stuff on your Class B uniform. You would see a lot of that for recruiters, which is oddly enough is the first group of people that are going to get these new uniforms are recruiters. And I guess, Jessica, they're going to a more professional look for those who don't work in the field. They work in an office, and this is going to be more their daily uniform.
So, for that reason, I kind of support it, because I feel like, as a whole, society has gotten, lazy in terms of presentation. Everything in general is more casual. So, even with law enforcement, I appreciate when they have, the nicer uniforms instead of just the polo and khakis. I think there's something to be said for a streamlined, nice uniform, especially in a position like this. I don't have a problem with it.
No, I agree. It's the anti-pajama pants movement.
That's right. No more yoga pants. I mean, I love yoga pants, but not for work. I don't think there's a yoga pant problem in the Army.
Too, but those things have height and weight requirements.
They do. But, I don't think there's a yoga pant epidemic in the Army, per se. And there's higher expectations in the Army or in the military in general than the general society. But, set an example. Be all that you can be.
They're doing away with the beret.
Amen.
With that, my God, look, I didn't necessarily have an issue with the beret itself. I thought it kind of looked good. It was it was interesting. What my problem with it is it's a uniform, which means it looks the same. And the berets were just always a cluster from one person to the next. They were vastly different. And so, like, for that reason alone, I'm glad to see that they're getting rid of it.
Well, you know, they're not getting rid of berets. They're getting rid of berets for traditional forces.
Right, yeah. Like, everyone wears a beret right now.
Right. Rangers.
Even with their field uniforms. And the I don't even know what they're called now. We called them BDUs. Then they were ACUs. Now they're something else. Yeah,
and that's the thing is a beret is useless for most things. Like I was in a unit that wore berets, but after formation, that came off, went in your pocket. You pulled your patrol cap out, which is the brimmed hat that you see. You know, the berets being vastly different really came about when I'm such a damn snob. When traditional forces got them,
right?
Like if you walked around 82nd Airborne Land, or you walked around a Ranger battalion, all their berets were smart. They were shaved. They're shaped. It took pride in the way that they looked because they represented their unit. When it went to everybody,
yeah, that's when it became a cluster.
And there are dirtbags in the Army too,
right?
When people say that, oh, everybody who served was a hero, nope.
Some of them are assholes.
Well, yeah, there's something called a chow thief.
I mean, we serve, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I am the living here. If everybody was a hero, no, don't put your finger on me.
Right.
I spent most of the time avoiding details and guzzling beer.
Lord. My dad, the hero.
What's that?
My dad, the hero.
No, and look, I think it's a smart look. I don't necessarily like the C cap coming back.
It feels very Navy-ish, doesn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, anybody can look up what that is. It's a slang term for it. It's a garrison cap. But they're also going to bring back, if you look at old, like World War II, because these are World War II style uniforms. They're going to bring back the full brimmed cap. The only way I can kind of explain is if you were to watch Hogan's Heroes, that's what Colonel Hogan wore.
Oh, that's like what you typically, like when you saw MacArthur.
Right, and they'll have different levels of, I think the Navy calls it scrambled eggs on the brim of it for field grade officers and things like that. So that's going to kind of look sharp. I know this is a recruiting thing, is they're trying to look cool, and I'm not sure that it translates to the 18 to 24-year-old. Because they're going to give their uniforms to the recruiters first. And those are the guys that are in the schools, and they're talking to these kids like, and...
Yeah, I mean, those guys are E6, E7. They've got, 15 years in.
Yeah, and the way they're rolling it out seems odd to me. They're calling it cost neutral. So you get a clothing allowance. You won't have to have this until, I think, 2028. So every year with your clothing allowance, you could go out and buy...
2020.
Well, 2020 is when they're going to start issuing it. But I think every unit doesn't have it until 2028. Something like that.
By then they'll have something else.
Well, that's been the thing with the battle dress uniform, is I haven't been out that long, and they've had 4 uniform changes. They changed costumes more than Broadway. and I'm sure there's some tactical advantage to these different uniforms. You used to have BDUs, which is battle dress uniforms, and then you would have DCUs, which is desert camo uniform.
That's the stuff that you saw like Norman Schwarzkopf.
Right, full screen.
Well, I'd say
Right.
Jessica was probably not old enough to remember that because I was like 12 or 13, so she was 3.
What?
Right.
What?
What?
If you were 12, I was not 3.
I said 12 or 13.
Well, I just want to be clear.
Well, it depends.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it could depend on when. There's a window there. Because you turn. No, I guess it
Sometimes of the
10.
year, I am 11 years younger.
Right, for 3 months. But where were we going with this? Oh yeah, so like the DCUs, the desert uniforms that like Norman Schwarzkopf was wearing in the first Desert Storm.
Right, and when you rotated through the sandbox, you would have to get issued a whole nother set of uniforms, even down to the boots. You didn't, BDUs, you had black leather boots that typically that had a shine on them, and then you would get issued desert boots. And the idea of the ACU was kind of a good one, that we're going to have one pattern that's going to blend in with most environments, and it did okay. The only bad thing about it is, and Matt, if you remember, looking sharp, having pressed BDUs and shined boots, and being an NCO and picking out one of your guys that just looked particularly squared away with a pressed uniform, shined boots, and giving them a half day off. And when the ACU came out, it was the pajama pants of
Right.
battle uniforms.
Well, I mean, there were guys that still had them dry cleaned and pressed, but the desert boots were, it was like a brushed leather. So,
It's suede.
Yeah, suede. And they were brown. They were tan. So there was no shining. But yeah, I mean, you could show up like looking just like ass. And the uniform was within regs because it's technically a wash and dry thing.
And you mix that with an 8-up beret, yeah, you just kind of.
and a dude that's barely passing his physical fitness test. And
Oh yeah, well, yeah. You can tell from a distance when you're looking at a National Guard and Reserve unit. You got a 300-pounder with you, a beret that's not shaped, and uniform looks like you just rolled out of bed. Like we found the guard, guys. As a point of order, I've been in all 3 components of the Army, active, reserve, and guard. So the Cleveland Browns last week, speaking of 8-up.
Here's something funny. The guy that owns the Cleveland Browns, do you know who it is?
No.
I don't know his name either, but
You're so bad at this, Matt. 40 episodes in.
no, dude. But he owns Pilot gas stations, travel centers, right? He is also the largest donor to the University of Tennessee's football program.
He's got 2 losers.
That's exactly right. And when he started, when he started asserting his authority at the University of Tennessee athletic department by way of his money, and started making some calls there about the way things were managed in the football team, that's when Tennessee fired Fulmer and started losing. And then it just didn't shock me to find out at all that he owns the Browns, the losingest football team in history. Sorry,
Okay, Jessica,
go ahead.
I'm going to spit the rest of the actual story out. Last week,
because hold on, it's 30. We're at the 35-minute mark for our listeners, just so you all know, and we're still in the icebreakers.
Good.
So-
Gloss over the other politics part.
Yeah.
So
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right?
Merry Christmas. Thanksgiving was last week.
Excuse me. Excuse me. You should be thankful every day.
Yeah, Dad.
You ornery old fool.
Look, sweetheart. I enjoyed reading that one.
We just went from funny to condescending in 0.2 seconds.
No. I was quoting was it sweetheart? Someone sent you left you a voicemail, or was it honey? Honey. Sorry. Wrong term.
Yes.
Sorry, honey.
Yes. Honey.
The Browns announced that they wanted to interview Condoleezza Rice for the head coaching job.
Oh, wow.
So, why?
I don't know, man. You ever seen the movie Draft Day? It's a Kevin Costner film, and I saw it on an airplane, about the general manager of the Cleveland Browns having a really good draft. It is so unlikely that they do anything right, they had to make it a piece of fiction. It is, and Condoleezza has been on the college football selection committee. She's a sports fan. She was one of the first women admitted as a member to Augusta National. So she's a sports person. And
golf isn't a sport.
It's an activity. It depends on how you do it.
Putt-putt's more of a sport than golf.
I agree.
No, because properly done, a round of golf involves shotgunning a beer after every hole and seeing who can stand up through 18.
Right, that's not a sport. That's a party.
Now, Condoleezza Rice is a Browns fan, and I really think that he was doing this as a publicity stunt. I mean, and Condi said she loves her Browns, and she would love to call a couple plays. Man, I do think there will be a woman head coach, because it's not. No, there will be. I mean, look, it's not an equality thing. It's just you don't have to have been a player to be a coach anymore. And a lot of the best coaches weren't. They actually were coaches' kids. So I think eventually there will be a woman. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if he was trying to hit every button. Like, let's make Republicans happy. Let's bring up a minority. Oh, or if he just wanted to is it the Rooney Rule? Whatever the rule is that you have to interview a minority prospect and just go ahead and have Condoleezza come in and check all the boxes. I have no idea what his motivation was. I don't know.
May have just been a hat tip because she's a fan.
Yeah, and she's a big fan, and it's, I like her. I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't like the Browns, so if they want to have a sweepstakes to be the next Browns head coach, that's fine with me. I mean, they can keep going 0-12.
Right.
Why do you like her?
I liked the reason. Some of the stuff. Some of the reasons that she came with an R after her name. I think she always handled herself very, very well in the public eye. I certainly like that. I thought that was kind of cool that she ended up on the college football selection committee. Because at first I was kind of scratching my head until I figured out, how into sports she is, being of the first to be admitted to Augusta, and the way Augusta went about bringing women into their club, which was advertisers were going to pull ads from the Masters. So the Masters just gave everybody a big middle finger and said, "We just won't run ads. We'll pay for it ourselves."
Awesome.
and then they added women on their own terms, not we're gonna protest you into changing your policies. It is not. Look, if I were to say I want to be a member of Augusta, I would never become a member at Augusta. That's how exclusive it is. They hand-pick their members. I don't play golf anyway, nor do I have the exorbitant amount of money. I mean, it's so exclusive. The rumor was Steve Spurrier went to coach at South Carolina because he could play at Augusta on Lou Holt's account. And if you're a golfer, that's the pinnacle of the places to be. So I was kind of a fan of the way that kind of stuff was handled. Man, at 60-something years old and having never coached football, I don't think that Rice is going to take a head coaching position. But I thought it was a cute story.
Right. No, I like her, but I like her probably for way different reasons. One, mostly because I read George W. Bush's book, and he talked about her quite a bit, and he had a tremendous amount of respect for her. And while there are things about the Bush presidency that I do not like, I believe that George Bush as a man was a great, he's a good guy. You know what I mean? And just I guess because there's a certain amount of respect that I have for him, I carry some of that respect just because of the amount of respect that he had for her.
Meh.
Well,
I don't transfer respect. Sorry.
This is a good time to remind everyone that these are our opinions and not necessarily those of All on Georgia. So we get an endorsement in the Secretary of State race. Smythe Duval.
Is it Smythe?
Yes.
Has endorsed John Barrow, the Democrat, for Secretary of State.
Preach now I don't. On.
What's that?
Preach on.
And Duval cites a few things in there as far as why he's endorsing. One of which being the the instant runoff, or the simultaneous runoff by ranking your votes when you have multiple more than two candidates. Saving millions for not having an actual runoff like we're facing here, and a fan of instant voter registration.
So, just so people understand, if you were the ranked choice voting in the Secretary of State's race on November 6th, if you were me, you would have gone in and voted for Smythe as a 1, Barrow as a 2, and then I would have either not voted for Raffensperger as a 3, or I could have skipped it. So, you go 1, 2, 3. Well, when Smythe doesn't make no one gets a runoff, the bottom one drops off and the top 2 remain, and they base it off that, and whoever gets the most out of the top 2 is the winner instantly.
Right.
So my 2 would have gone to Barrow instantly. I wouldn't have to return to the polls.
Right. Now, are you a fan of instant registration?
When I was listening to... So I interviewed, obviously, Smythe and Barrow. And when I was interviewing Smythe, he brought it up, and I was like, he brings up some good points. If you're registered, if you meet the qualifications to register to vote, you should be able to register at any time. And I'm like, that's an interesting point. And then I was really surprised when I met Barrow and I asked him if he supported same-day registration, and he said no. And he said in the video that he doesn't, and he went on to describe that he thinks that the registration process should be easier and it could be moved up closer to the date of the election, which I do agree with. A month does seem like a long time to get everything in order, but it was just interesting that the Libertarian was for, if you meet the qualifications, then you show up and you register, and then you get in the next line and you vote. I don't know how I feel about that. I need to know more.
I think we all know how I feel about it.
And how is that?
I'm a big
Show your
fan.
property taxes.
Yeah, that's right. Show your tax bill. Show your ID to show you're not on welfare. Show me you got some skin in the game.
Well, look,
But I'm not even sure I'd be for it in an instant thing in that scenario, because, I like the idea that it's a month out. Voting is a thing. It's a responsibility. Have your shit together.
Well, here's the thing. None of that is under the purview of Secretary of State. The 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it is, that's a law. And I was sitting in a meeting, and someone stood up and said, "Go out and vote." And then he gave a spiel about, remember that Barrow is is against requiring voter ID, and if he's elected Secretary of State, we won't have voter ID requirements anymore. And of course, this falls under Dave's the a-hole. I had to interrupt him. It's like, that's not under the purview of that office. He can't write law. His job is an executive role. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with everything Barrow stands for sure. Absolutely, I don't. I mean, he and I have different stances on a lot of things. But Jessica, as you have said many times, this is a client service position and an executive position, not a legislative position.
Well, and I am still having my email box. I've joked that it's a part of the Me Too movement after this election cycle because of how much they are spamming me. But I got an email from the Georgia GOP last week, and it says, here's the headline, I'll read it to you. John Barrow's mission to make Georgia's elections easier to steal. First of all, that's not proper grammar. Second, the subheader is, wants zombies and illegals to vote.
Wow.
That is from the Georgia Republican Party. And it says, quote, zombies voting? Oh yes, it happens all the time in states with Democrats as election chiefs.
Do you think, though, that there's widespread voter fraud?
I do. I know there's voter fraud. I've seen it. I've seen it in action. I've seen these counties, but it happens at the county level.
Right. It happens at the county level. It happens, I think, primarily through absentee ballots and provisional ballots. Obviously, I think that was one of the reasons that Abrams was pushing so hard. Man, but as far as walking up with a state ID and having your power bill, whatever else you need in order to register to vote, I think that level of voter fraud is probably very, very low. You would have to have a pretty good forgery of a state license to do that, because they scan the back of your license if I recall correctly. So, as long as the voter ID laws, it'd be difficult for that to become fraudulent. I would be willing to sacrifice early voting, or at least sacrifice absentee, to give up instant registration.
So, hold on, though. I saw a guy, because he was in front of me when we were signing in on Election Day. And it irritated me because I felt he was being unnecessarily difficult. Because I saw his driver's license, but he hands the poll worker his passport. and like it just created a thing where she had to go through multiple steps on a computer, and she hadn't done it yet, right?
I have no doubt that there were plants in the election to cause problems and to create stories of 100%. I mean, who takes their passport to go vote?
The dude in front of me wearing a...
Right, and you said you saw a license.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, like I saw his driver's license. You know, it'd be one... When I saw that he had his passport, I'm like, man, who wants to be that difficult about it? And so, like, then I started giving him the stink eye, you know? And I'm looking at, like, the girl that he was with. And then I was like, well, dang, he's got a wallet right there. And then, you know, in some wallets, the cards stick out of the top, and I recognize the little piece of a driver's license. And I'm like, I'm sitting here for an extra 5 minutes while this poor old lady at the poll worker chick tries to figure out how to deal with this passport, when this dude could just hand her a damn driver's license. She could scan it and we could go on about life. But.
Matt, you are getting angry with somebody for trolling.
Right?
Oh, the irony. Although when I need a troll, I'm like, Matt, come on.
It's just like, he's a dog you take off the leash. Matt's okay, get him, boy, get him.
Precisely.
She's only,
Well, Jessica,
she's only called me 3 times.
Jessica, I hear you are headed for Facebook jail, speaking of, for violating the community standards.
It seems that way. So I wrote an article about, ironically, voter roll purging, because I stumbled upon a bill from 1997 that said that it was Democrats that sponsored the legislation to make it so, like, narrow the law to make it so that after 3 elections and 2 Novembers, you're, like, purged from the voter lists and all the parameters that went with it. And it was signed into law by a Democrat. And so I linked to the bill and linked to all the Democrats. And I will say it was interesting to go back to 1997 and look at all the quote Republicans today who had D's next to their name back in the 90s. And the fact that they're still elected, like that they've been elected for most of my life, which is horrifying. But anyway, I posted the article, and Facebook said that it violated the community standards, and it's still out there in the news feed, but they won't allow it on my timeline, even though it's been shared like 200 times. And I think it's because I was attacking Democrats in the headline. But so I shared it again, just out of spite.
So somebody that is at least following you reported it.
That's right. Which is not uncommon. I mean, it happens. Like, people do that, and it's obnoxious. And the only other time I've had one removed was a pro-gun campus carry article that I wrote as well. But after appealing it and after like 2 days, they put it back. So, I don't know what's going to happen with this one, but I'm going to keep sharing it.
And Matt, Facebook's a private organization. They can do what they want. But I've also heard this compared to the telephone company or your internet company deciding whether or not to disconnect your service based on the conversations you have with your friends.
Right. You know, here's the thing. I think at some point, just because of the way, like the fact that so many people get their news from social media now, I think at some point Facebook is going to have to almost, I don't want to say come to terms with a First Amendment type thing, but they really are. If it's going to be a news, if your feed is going to be a place where you get news from, I don't know how long, I can't believe I'm going to say this, that the government's going to allow them to continue to suppress one side versus another.
So you bring up a great point, and I think we're headed down that track. But then, like, where does it stop? Which is why it terrifies me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, we don't censor comments on All on Georgia on our no matter what you say. Like, we don't ban people. We don't censor comments, even if you're dropping F-bombs. But, like, are we gonna? I don't know. Where will it stop? Because Facebook is the tool. But then, is Facebook going to be meddling in what All on Georgia does, or will Facebook just be responsible for not censoring people? Like, what does that look like?
Right. No, I know. That's why I was like, man, I can't believe I'm even saying this. It's a very, like, it's a scary thought.
Well, when do we consider it a utility? God, we talked about sex offenders last week, and this week I'm going to bring up Alex Jones. You can find what Alex Jones says repugnant, and I believe Alex Jones is playing a character, and the people who take him seriously are being played for fools. I really think that he has come up with this character, and sometimes he goes too far. But he was effectively silenced when all the social media platforms kicked him off, and it was over something he said. And I know it's not the government doing it, but Matt, you're right. It has that icky feeling of censorship. And at what point do we and this is something I heard on a Rogan podcast. At what point do we consider these platforms a utility?
Right.
I would pay an annual fee to be able to say what I want without fear of it being censored. I would pay to use the platforms, an annual fee, whether it was $150, $350, I don't know how much I would pay, but I use it enough to get my message out there and rely on it that much that I would pay to be able to, bypass the censorship.
It is social engineering from their standpoint. And look, this is one of the key points of the dumbing down of our society is people get their news from Facebook, the tweets, and places like that, and all it takes is someone to create a meme and it gets shared. And that's what when they keep talking about Russian involvement and the election, they had meme factories and they were putting out disinformation and the same stuff they've been doing. It's just that social media makes it so easy and people are so quick to hit like and share. If you don't, can this puppy get 10,000 likes or shares or it's going to die? Right. And people are just so quick to rubber stamp that and share that with everybody else. So when we have that, we have the effective silencing of any opposing view because it is such a widely used platform.
Right.
I feel like I'm sitting here trying to wrap my head around paying for Facebook and if I would actually do that. I gotta understand, Jessica, why you would.
Right.
But
I'm not saying you could just continue to use it for free.
Oh,
if
okay.
You
okay.
weren't,
So like a paid version that said basically
I can say whatever the hell I want.
So you're gonna leave me alone and I'm gonna say whatever the hell I want.
That's right. And you could be a commenter and risk you would pay to avoid the risk of being censored or having your content deleted because it sounds petty, but when you put an article out there that has first of all, it doesn't when you're talking about a writer, it can hurt your credibility. You put something out there that has 300 shares and then it gets deleted, people think that you don't stand behind your opinion or you got scared or there's so many different aspects to it. Or if they throw you in jail and you can't post and you kind of rely on posting for getting your message out there. I mean, I don't know. it sounds petty when you're talking about it for fun. No, I wouldn't pay for it for fun, but from the work perspective, I would definitely pay for them to just say, okay, well, she's on the premium plan. We'll leave her alone.
Right. TSA pre-check.
Right.
or put a disclaimer on whatever that says opinion piece. And I think I know your stuff does, but
Right.
say this is an opinion piece. You can both think what someone says is wrong or offensive, and say, okay, well, I've heard it, and keep scrolling. And apparently, Facebook has become this community where you just can't keep scrolling for some. People just can't scroll past.
Right.
Sometimes I can't.
Okay. Oh, Matt, have you ever scrolled past anything?
Oh, yeah. I scroll past stuff all the time, but sometimes I can't.
I'm sure we have beat that down so much that we made Shady sick. And Jessica has had to leave to take care of that. Matt, closing thoughts?
Yes. I just wanted to say again that Amendment 1 passed. I'm probably going to bring it up every show for a while, just because.
Hold on. Just for Jessica.
Just for Jessica, right.
Yeah, I can't even call her a brat because you're a brat for bringing it up and spiking the football every week.
Right. Let's see. I don't know, man. Oh, my kid killed a doe the other day. That was fun. He yeah, now here's the funny part. 82 yards on a power line, right? And it's my 12-year-old, is Maddox. And when we were getting everything together to go out, I put one bullet in my rifle. And he's like, one bullet? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I'm just going to back you up in case that big deer is there. And he's like, okay. So the way that we were sitting, the power line kind of angled, Maddox was sitting to my left. And Maddox shoots left-handed. But I saw the deer step out into the power line first. And I was like, Maddox, there's a deer down there. And he's like, I can't see it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you'll see it. Don't worry. And it starts making its way across the power line, and it's feeding slowly. And I'm like, can you see it? And he's like, yeah, I see it. I'm like, all right. I said, I'm watching it with you. I said, I'm right here. I'm backing you up. I said, it's turned funny, and it's, but it's relaxed. It doesn't know we're here. I said, shoot for the opposite shoulder. And, just when you get a good broadside or quarter away shot, you squeeze it off and shoot the way you've been taught. He's like, okay. And we're watching, and I was like, all right, buddy, that's your shot. He's like, I can shoot. I'm like, get it done. And he pulls the trigger, and that deer runs straight towards us. And I was like, man, something about that didn't look right. So I dropped the crosshairs right into the chest, pulled the trigger. Boom! Deer spins, runs off. You can tell it's hit. I'm like, all right. Maddox was like, you think we got it? I'm like, yeah, we got it. It's fine. Let's go down here and go find it. So we go, and we find it about 35, 40 feet inside the wood line. And we get down there to the deer, and it's been shot once. And he's like, he said, where was it shot? And I was like, right here. That's your shot, buddy. He's like, where's your shot? And I'm like, I missed. He goes, some backup you are. It's terrible. I don't know. It's fun. It's a funny story with my kid, though, man, because he's quick-witted like that sometimes. But
and the trolling continues on in the Lowe family,
right? So, I guess that's it. That's all for my concluding thoughts.
You know, I don't have any great parting wisdom other than it's the elections are over. The runoff will soon be over. Christmas is here. Just come off of politics a little bit for the next 20 some odd days or the next 30 some odd days.
Right.
You don't have to populate your Facebook with everything political. It's okay to post a picture of a fish you caught, a deer you caught, something besides political memes.
Right. I'll post pictures of Maddox's deer.
You do that.
I thought about posting the picture of that big 8-pointer I killed, but I wasn't sure.
It probably violates standards.
Probably so.
All right, for Matt Lowe, Jessica Salaji, and I'm Dave Roberts, thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Later.